here you see the Atlanta Journal-Constitution headline, "Bill to Limit Lawsuits Against Crop Chemical Makers Heads to Governor Kemp." The language of the bill is short and sweet. It says that it's relating to liability for use of fertilizers, plant growth regulators, or pesticides, so as to clarify that, and this is the important part, a manufacturer cannot be held liable for failing to warn consumers of health risks above those required by the United States Environmental Protection Agency with respect to pesticides. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution says this basically comes after these lawsuits against Monsanto, now Bayer, where people are getting paid out a lot of money saying that Roundup, for instance, glyphosate has caused their cancer. One guy here just got a $2.1 billion verdict. Georgia jury hands out a $2.1 billion verdict in a lawsuit brought by a man who said that glyphosate caused his cancer. Monsanto issuing a statement denouncing the verdict, saying they're going to appeal. So the legislature in Atlanta, it sounds like, well, technically for the entire state of Georgia, but they go to Atlanta to do their job. They voted to pass this bill to say, hey, if you put a label on there that is what the EPA says you need to put on there, then you can't be sued by somebody who says, but you didn't tell me this and you didn't tell me that. You should have told me all these other things. Some people might say, isn't that enough? It's the federal law. You followed the federal law. Why should you be able to be sued for not putting other stuff on the label? And you have publicly asked the governor to veto the bill. He has taken no action on the bill as of right now. If he lets the clock run out, I think for 40 days after the legislative session, it will automatically become law. So, Will, you're a regenerative rancher in Southwest Georgia. You are a very, like, I guess what we would call clean ranching model. Okay. So you're trying to use the animals in symbiosis with each other and the land and have soil that is full of nutrients without adding chemical fertilizers. And you've asked the governor to veto this bill. Why?
I think that the use and abuse of pesticides that we have today is pretty rampant. And I think it's damaging. I think it's harmful. I think it's harmful to those who use it, but I think it's harmful to those who are exposed to it. Let me, there's not a lot about this current event I can tell you that I think will be beneficial or helpful, because I don't know any more than I've read in the press. But let me give you a little bit of a history lesson. My great-grandfather founded this farm in 1866. I'm the fourth generation on the farm. And I have 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren on the farm following me. Chemicals, pesticides and chemical fertilizer and pesticides were not an issue until post-World War II. They just hadn't been developed. The technology of the war effort in chemicals and explosives gave birth to the pesticide industry and the commercial fertilizer industry. And it really, in the short run, did great things for productivity on the farm. In the long term, it had horrible after effects. The use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides breaks the cycles of nature. The cycles of nature are, to name a few, the energy cycle from the sun, the water cycle, the microbial cycle, the mineral cycle, on and on. When those cycles are operating optimally, it generates an abundance. All that coal and oil and gas in the ground that we've been using for the last 100 years was the benefit of nature, the excess of nature, the bounty of nature from the era of the dinosaur. Post-World War II, we started using the technologies, the chemicals and fertilizers, pesticides and fertilizers, and we were able to, in the short run, really increase productivity. In the long run, it actually damaged the soil, the microbes in the soil, the water, the environment in general. And this legislation we're talking about now just gives these input producing companies a little more flexibility, a little more freedom to operate without any oversight and administration.
Okay. I guess big picture, one of the questions that I have that I think other viewers have brought up, because I get questions ahead of time from people, is why not say focus on the route of getting farmers off of these chemicals versus going the route of saying lawsuit should settle this, because we seem to be in a very lawsuit heavy era. We're going to court all the time now, whether it's against the government for, say, violating what we believe to be our First Amendment rights. That happened during COVID to me. And now we're saying, okay, we're going to take them to court over pesticides. And you're saying we should be able to, and Georgia saying no. I mean, this is we're sue happy. We shouldn't be putting these people out of business. If you've read the EPA warning, it should be enough. Why should they be required to do more than the federal government says they do? Okay, so that's my question. Why should they be required to do more? And why do you think suing is the answer, or are we too focused on taking these companies to court when maybe there's a better solution there? Okay, but before we do that, get your AllisonWinePromo.com. If you sign up for my wine club, I know Will is a wine drinker, right, Will?
I am.
Okay, he told me once he has wine at night and coffee in the morning, and that's really all you need, right? I don't even know if you eat anything.
I drink one glass of wine every night. It's a 750 milliliter glass.
There you go. Okay, well, you'll get a few of those in your 3-month delivery. You get 6 bottles every 3 months, and these were all selected for the stuff I like. Very clean processing and clean growing techniques. Some of these farms have been in business. These vineyards have been around for over 200 years. 5th generation farmers up in, say, 6,000 to 9,000 feet elevation vineyards in Argentina. We got bottles coming from Spain, Italy, France, but kind of places that I would want to drink wine from. And so you'll get to drink the kind of wine I like, which is like, there's not the dyes and the additives and the filtration, the stuff they do to the grocery store wines. So go sign up. It's a great way to support the show. You'll get a great product. I have one bottle right here. I don't drink during the show. I just use it as a prop. Every time I come, I bring people to the farm and they come in to see my podcast area and they see this, they think I do. I don't drink during the show, but I do like to have it there as a prop. So go to AllisonWinePromo.com, get your wine. This one, where is this one from? Chile. So this is another great bottle. You will not be disappointed. If you're not a wine drinker, you can just save them as presents. And you can send one bottle to Governor Kemp and say you'll sign him up for the wine club if he vetoes the bill in honor of Will. Okay, so AllisonWinePromo.com. So, okay, so let's go back to my question, which is this the best way, focusing on lawsuits, and giving people more opportunity, maybe not more opportunity, but the opportunity to continue suing? Is this the best route to go anyway? Are lawsuits the best route? Should we be doing something else? And why isn't, why not just leave the EPA label up there as enough? Why isn't that enough?
Let me take this tact.
Okay.
Side means kill. Homicide is to commit murder of humans, right?
Yes,
pesticide means kill pests. Herbicide means kill plants. Insecticide means kill insects. Nematicides kill nematodes, etc. So we have modern linear monocultural farming is built around killing everything that's in the field that's not part of the monoculture that you're trying to operate on. And that's not the way nature works. Nature operates with many species of plants and animals and microbes living in symbiotic relationships with each other. And somewhere in post-World War II, my grandfather's generation figured out that it was just magic. When something was living in your field that you didn't like, you could use a pesticide and make it go away. And it just seemed wonderful. It just seemed great. Unfortunately, it takes things out of balance. So when you use a pesticide, it's just a matter of time before you have to use another pesticide to control whatever was the result of the first one, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Similarly, chemical fertilizer degrades the carbon in the soil, so that you have less organic matter. The organic matter on my land now used to be 0.5%. It's now 5.5%. And if I went back to using chemical fertilizer and tillage, in a few years, it'd be back down to 0.5%.
Okay. Say, though, that there's somebody in the Georgia legislature that totally agrees with you when it comes to the way they like farming to be done, but they just don't agree with requiring a company to do more than what the federal law requires. So they're not arguing the merits of using pesticides. They would agree with you on, say they agree with you on that. I'm not sure anybody in the Georgia legislature does. I'm just saying, let's just use that as an example. They just don't think the labeling should be harder than what the federal government requires. What do you think about that?
Well, I've been to Atlanta and to DC a number of times in my life to help guide legislation in a way that was pleasing to me. And about 5 years ago, I made up my mind I'm not going to do that anymore. I became aware and slowly became aware of the influence of lobbyists and the money from lobbyists on politicians, legislators. And, when I could go up there with the best idea in the world, and if I'm followed with a lobbyist with a briefcase full of money, then I'm not going to have much influence. And so I'm convinced, sadly, that any real change we see in the way we farm, the way we produce food, won't come from Congress. It'll come from consumers. And I'm not sure it's going to happen. But I'm sure that if it happens, it'll be consumers. In this case, we're talking about Bayer and Monsanto. Bayer now owns Monsanto. It's billions of dollars. It's trillions of dollars. And there's just so much influence there that I don't think we can depend on our legislatures to lead us in the right direction.
Well, it is interesting to me that this bill seems like, anyone, when I read the reports, that it had what they call bipartisan support. So it wasn't like the conservatives don't like the environment and the Democrats tried to stop it, but they did. This was like everyone was like, sure, and I mean, I have found that politically, when there's a lot of money involved, the more money involved, the more the two parties start to look a lot alike. If there's they may have differences of opinions, like when there's not as much money involved, but the second big company is a big money is involved, and it's just like they all seem to look very similar. So I do think it's interesting, yeah, that it would seem like bipartisan is what they keep saying about it. And one person over on Locals, who's a Georgia resident, okay, thank you to everybody who's on AllisonMorrow.locals.com on the editorial board, $5 a month to go one-on-one with the most censored people on the internet. I think it's a great value. But basically saying that he thinks Georgia is one of the most bought and paid for states in the United States. So I don't know about that, but I don't know. What do you think about farming in Georgia? I mean, is this par for the course? Did this surprise you to see this? And why should the government, I guess, this is kind of the reverse of what I was asking earlier. Why does the government feel the need to get involved in protecting these companies at all? I mean, why would a conservative who says limit government, for instance, get involved in a private citizen's ability to seek justice with a company? That doesn't seem like wanting limited government to me.
Well, the answer is that the companies see the need, see the benefit of purchasing the support of politicians. And that's how they get the laws like this passed. And it's highly efficacious. It works really, really well. And dollars are not Republican or Democrat. Dollars are dollars. That's bipartisan. Bipartisan is money.
If you haven't gone to greenpasture.org, you can use promo code Allison at checkout, get 10% off. And they've got lots of great products, like health-related products. For instance, a natural Vicks Vapor Rub or Muscle Rub that's got really good essential oils, and it's made with their skate oil. But we take the fermented cod liver oil, concentrated butter oil blend in our family. I've been taking over for over a decade. I used to get cavities all the time. I'd go to the dentist, and every 6 months I was very regular about it. And I always had cavities. Anyway, started taking this product. And not only did the time increase between my visits, like one time I went 3 years without going to the dentist, not on purpose. I just forgot to go. And I had no cavities, and it was amazing. And no dentist really cared to know what I was doing, but I will tell you, greenpasture.org, promo code Allison, 10% off. This is the product: cod liver oil, concentrated butter oil blend. Dr. Weston Price, who was a biological dentist turn of the century, noticing all of his patients starting to get cavities. He had the theory that it was because of processed foods. He started studying indigenous cultures around the world to see why they did not have cavities, even though they had no dentists. And essentially what he came up with was the fact that they ate very close to their food source and a lot of organ meat. And so anyway, this is what he said: to put the two together, you get more out of them than if you just took a fish oil or a butter oil. They have the synergistic vitamins and minerals and omegas for the best absorption of all of it. So it's great for all kinds of chronic like inflammation issues, but I love it for dental health if you're somebody who struggles with that, like I did. Greenpasture.org, promo code Allison. Okay. So like going over to the questions again on locals, AllisonMorrow.locals.com. I asked this earlier, sort of, but I'll be more direct with it because, like, for instance, I have a lawsuit. I'm suing the Washington State Department of Natural Resources, who was my former employer. During COVID, I was interviewing people like, the dissenters, people who had different opinions during COVID about what we should do, whether it was lockdown or vaccine mandates or the vaccine's safety, stuff like that. And my bosses at DNR said that if I wanted to keep my job, I had to stop interviewing these people. I refused. I told them it was my personal time. I could do whatever I could talk to whoever I wanted on my personal time and say what I wanted to say. They had to abide by First Amendment rights that I had as a private citizen, and they disagreed. So they fired me. So anyway, I have this lawsuit, but I wouldn't have been able to afford the lawsuit. Really, this Silent Majority Foundation out of Washington took it. They're a nonprofit. They took my case on contingency, but I wouldn't have been able to afford to pay a lawyer. And I do have hesitation about suing as like the way to protect the Constitution, because we're all suing now. It's like the government just gets to break the law, and then we have to pay their attorney's fees and we have to pay our attorney's fees to prove that they're breaking the law, instead of them having to prove they're not breaking the law first before they, put us at risk. It just feels like we have all the responsibility and they have all the power. I don't like it. So needless to say, I do have a lawsuit, but I'm not a fan of suing. I don't necessarily think it's the best, most effective way for us to see change. And Empress asks, is there a site to find a synopsis of the bill? I did put that in the comments there, so you can look that up. It's very short. But is there another avenue or avenues to achieve good outcomes other than lawsuits? I'm disheartened by the increasing need to pay lawyers for both justice and defense. Like, it does seem like the lawyers are the ones who win in all of these cases, and the ability to purchase or cancel much needed study information. So you've said, the consumer is where this at, and this is the best way to go about it. I'm going to ask this kind of a different way. What would be at risk if this bill is signed by the governor, or he lets the clock run out and it becomes law? What is at risk if the consumer loses the ability to sue over these labels? I mean, what are you afraid is going to get worse than it already is?
I think it just gives more freedom to, in this case, pesticide companies to produce products that have adverse impacts to nature, to the customer, to the product. I don't think it's it's absolutely a nuclear reaction. I don't think it's going to be horrible. It's just one more step in a negative direction.